Okay, hi Jill.
Hi, Madeline.
Yay, thanks for joining me to have a little session on PR. It's,
So fun.
isn't it? I know. You mentioned that you write your own press releases and I was like, "Oh my gosh, so do I." And then I realized a lot of people don't do that, and that's been that's how I get my brand into magazines. There's only been one time that someone just showed up to something that I didn't already invite. And so it shows like the power of asking people to come to your show, of telling people what you're doing and wanting them to publish you in their magazine. You had just mentioned something really, really interesting about engagement with your people and different platforms that you've been looking at in order to kind of model in your own platforms and networks. And so if you can start by just talking a little bit about that. I just watched this beautiful video that you sent me, virtual gallery tour, and it was engaging. All of a sudden it was over and I'd watched the whole thing. So you're doing something right.
No, it's always a challenge to figure out how to engage well with your audience as an artist. And I try to experiment with lots of different ways of doing that. I definitely do look at other types of platforms that are super successful at engagement, like a TikTok or an IGTV. Obviously, Instagram, you have your influencers. So by modeling or picking up tips from all these different platforms can help you be a better influencer in your own market. So that's something that I continually do, and we've launched several different branded products with this in mind. So one is called Painting Storytime. So we launched that last week. It's a collaborative project. I have an amazing designer, illustrator on staff who helps me and created the logo. I have a nephew who's a composer, Casey Lackritz, who is an amazing musician, and we put his music to the logo. And then I have a videographer, Kathy Matthews, who's helped to bring all this alive. So between Simone Kurtz, who's the illustrator, and the others, we create these fun projects that, again, are influenced by what's going on around the internet.
Yeah, and you called them branded products. I think, because that's what they are. Anytime you put something out there with your logo on it, or even without, like a painting is a product that you're selling. And so the fact that you're even viewing these video posts to Instagram as a branded product, I think just shows like where your mind is at with this. It's really important to be viewing anything that you're putting out as a product, especially if it like legit has your logo stamped on it, which all of your stuff is very well branded. You have your Painting Storytime logo, which you're right, you guys are gonna have to go watch that. It's so cool. And then you have your beautiful contemporary logo that we all have already seen. So it's nice that you're bringing in this Painting Storytime, and you have a strategy and a plan for creating and releasing these.
So the hope is to try to every week have something special that you're engaging with your community with. So through IGTV and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, having contacts across the spectrum from business to the art world. You want to engage with different audiences, and you also want to offer different products and different angles of marketing those products for the different platforms.
Yeah. So how are you marketing these different products? When you launch something like a Painting Storytime video, what are the different ways that you drive traffic to that branded product on your IGTV?
So what we did was we first launched the little illustration of the branding, Painting Storytime. So we put that out on all the different platforms first to try to generate some interest, engagement, and there was, and I actually spent some money to promote it on some of these platforms to get a wider audience of people who I wouldn't ordinarily meet. And then I can invite them in if they're accessing the content. I can invite them to join my page, and so that when we ultimately launch the product, we already have a broader audience of people who want to listen in.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna like break that down a little bit just so we can like get into the details of it. Um, how exactly are you inviting in these new people? So you pay, let's say you pay for an ad. We've all paid for a social media ad. And if you haven't, you should consider it. So you pay for an ad, your logo gets seen by some new people. Then what? Now you have new people that have seen your logo, but how do you necessarily translate that into consistent eyes on your work?
Yeah. So, for example, on Facebook, if they liked the image, then and they aren't already one of your friends, then you can just go through the list of people who liked your image and then invite them in to then like your page. And typically they would because they've just engaged with you.
Yeah. So you are being conscious of the timing with this. So you release something and within a timely manner. I don't know if you do this like within the hour or within like a 24-hour period, but going through and seeing, I mean, this, like you have to do this as a human. You have to go back, you know, you can't just like put something out there and wait for like your bank account to grow. It doesn't, there's a lot that has to happen in between.
Right.
Put it out there, you have the ad, whether or not you have the ad, people are engaging more or less. And then you go and you look through that list and you see who you're not already friends with. You're saying the word invite because we're talking about Facebook as a platform here. And so you
Right.
go through and you invite them into like your page. And then now they're going to automatically, because of the algorithm, have your content on their feed.
Exactly. And you can do the same thing with Instagram. So when people are liking your what you're launching, then you can, or they start to follow you, then you can follow them back. You can see if those are followers that make sense for you to have in your network of people. And you're growing that network too. So it's, I often go with some of the, it's always interesting. Everybody can test different algorithms about which group is the right group to be advertising to. There's a lot of, trial and error there. But I've often used the automatic. Sometimes I'll use more specific location-based or interest-based, but oftentimes the automatic seems to bring in the right communities of people, and it's quicker.
Yeah, and what Jill's talking about is when you go and buy, I think this is what you're talking about. When you go and buy an ad, you get to set up that ad to, or like within the algorithm of that ad, target certain audiences. And typically, it's kind of creepy, but the software will be able to know like what audience that image is going to like just based on like your history with the platform. But you can also tweak it a little bit. Like if you're running a program for women, then you're going to want to make sure you only target women. Luckily, men and women buy art and like painting stories.
Right. I mean, there's so many different ways to be engaging with your audience. Another digital platform I use is MailChimp. So direct emails to people are one thing, but MailChimp gives you a way to actually automate and understand who's engaging with your product. So I try to create a list over a period of time and create content that's going to be very appealing, very timely. Whether it's just an exhibition, you want to give people a rundown of the exhibition, the installation photos, any press that was associated with it, any video associated with it. You might package that all together and put that out in what I call a MailChimp. And then you can see who's engaging with it. You can see actually how many times people open up the email, whether they click on any of the links in the email, and then to follow up with that automation and to understand who is actually really engaged with your work.
Yeah. You guys are going to need to rewind a minute and like listen to all of that again, because that was like gold. That was the value for this whole call. This is going to be one of those calls that you're going to have to like pause and take notes and play and pause again. Seriously, because what you said that you just put together as a package for MailChimp, I mean, you have the press release that you've already sent out. You have the painting story time. Let's just start with when you first had the logo. I mean, did you send that out to your mail, to your listserv?
I sent it out. I focused on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for that specifically. What I intend to do now that we'll have 2 painting story times, we're going to launch our second one tomorrow, called Dance of the Caterpillar. So it's going to be the whole story behind this painting that's been in a couple of museum shows, and it's a very Alice in Wonderland, very great engagement with kids with this particular work. So it's going to be the whole story about this painting with original music. And so we're going to launch that. And now that we have our second one, the first one was based on music my daughter wrote, actually, which inspired its own painting called Chasing the Invisible. So I'm going to take both of these, package them together, and each one starts with the logo. And I'm going to put that in a MailChimp. And I'm going to, now that I've gotten to this point in the process, I'm going to send it out to the MailChimp list, which includes galleries and museums and all collectors and prospective collectors, and see what engagement I get now for painting story time, and hopefully get some feedback, because the point is to keep improving upon the product that you're putting out there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm going to have to type feedback into the notes, because we need to make sure that we talk about that. But I first want to ask you, when you were, since quarantine, you've been, since the digital era began, that's never ending, you guys. It's like, this is now a new amazing way for you to connect with your community, because everyone is like realizing how important digital is. Were you able to track engagement? I'm sure you did. What did it look like when you tracked engagement for your virtual gallery and studio tours? Because those videos are so cool. You guys, Jill's IGTV is off the hook. Awesome.
That's all new. I mean, I did have one video that was made very professionally for my show at Coral Springs Museum of Art last year. So that I brought in, the big guns to come in and create sort of a biopic about me and my work, and that's on the IGTV. But the recent IGTV work has been done by my great designer, Simone Kurtz, and also Kathy Matthews, who's over at Pace University. She's doing an internship with me during the semester. And, tapping into young, talented artists is just an awesome experience. And leveraging their talents to help you create your platform and make it stronger. These are all really valuable tools. And so that's where we are. But with the pop-up virtual gallery, this is a completely new product that we're starting. So yes, I did Matterport, which is a technology where you actually, get a virtual look at each room. It's often used in real estate. You can use it in art galleries. I did that for a couple of shows that I had. But what we've done now is we've actually created mock-up galleries, through Photoshop, taking the paintings off the wall, so to speak, and then putting new paintings, curating it, and putting new paintings on the wall as if they're actually there. So we created, just the process of doing this has created an enormous amount of content. And the key is to figure out how to market this content different ways for different audiences. So we created a really snappy video that'll go out on IGTV, and it is supposed to attract sort of a very young, vibrant, young people who are interested in art. And then we have a much more expansive video to attract collectors who actually are interested in seeing the process, the curation process behind it. And also young artists who might want to find out how you can go through the Photoshop steps of creating what we did. So there's a lot of fun stuff that we're exploring.
Yeah. I mean, and would you say you're the COO? You are the chief operating officer here. No one is creating deadlines for you. You're doing the research to figure out what app to use. You're bringing the community together because you know everyone's skill sets. You don't have a manager doing this for you. You're doing this yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm very driven. I mean, coming to my studio, thankfully I can still do that each day. But I have a very creative approach, not only to my artwork, but to marketing and bringing the art to people in creative and new ways. So I'm trying to explore all new ways of doing that. And, some work, some don't. Getting feedback is really important. My daughter is my toughest critic. If it passes her muster, usually it's okay. So you know, I have a lot of people who I rely on to give me feedback on some of the stuff that I'm trying.
Mm. All right, so back to email and MailChimp and all of these different platforms that we use. Your best way to, just to kind of go over it, your best way to navigate and manage the feedback in MailChimp is to look at, just to like look within the software and literally see per email what everyone clicked. You said you can see how many times people revisit an email, which I think
Yes.
is super cool. Like
Yes.
they're opening it again. It's like, I actually want to check out that painting of Jill's one more time. That's a big deal.
It is. It's super helpful.
And those are people you call? Or
Yes, I mean, they're certainly on my radar.
yeah.
And if I have an event, I might send them a personal email to please come
Yeah.
to the event. So I try to create other ways to personally contact people like that. But I also add galleries to these lists who I don't know. And if the gallery opens up the email more than twice, I will call that gallery.
Yeah.
I will make that call. I will either make the call or I'll find out what's on the agenda if the gallery really suits my kind of style of work. So I do the research, check the location, check the kind of art, the artist, their website, see if it's really the kind of gallery that makes sense to engage with. And then I look at what do they have on their agenda. Are they at art fairs? Are they featuring certain types of artists? And then maybe I run into them at the art fair and I go up to them and I say, oh, you know, I saw you guys really engaged with my work online, and here's a brochure, here's a book, here's a, you know, anything to try to engage with them personally.
Yeah. How are you keeping track of all these people? I have a couple ways I do it. I'm curious how you do it.
Well, I mean, the beauty of MailChimp is you always have that information of who is engaged. So if you know that you're going to Miami for Art Basel and there are a certain number of galleries down there that did engage with your work online, I go visit those galleries, or I'll visit them at shows that they're presenting their artwork at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're fully using MailChimp to track your communications with people. And then if you do go visit a gallery, do you have a spreadsheet where you're like, okay, met them in person on this date, or is this kind of all just like organic and in your head?
Yeah, I probably should keep better track of this stuff. I will over time, but at the moment I can remember, you know, which markets I'm visiting, and I haven't done sort of a geographic roadshow, so to speak, where I wanted to go and visit 10 markets. If I was doing something more organized like that, then I would absolutely be keeping very close, you know, detailed notes on who, what, and when.
And that's easy to do, you guys, just in a spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
That's how for each quarter. So part of how I like teach business is by being transparent in my business. And each quarter I keep track of people I reach out to, and I'll do, so the other day I did 74 reach outs in one day.
Wow.
And so I'm reaching out to a lot of people and I'm keeping track of that. How many people I reach out to, how many people respond, and then how many touch points back and forth it takes before either it fizzles out or if they decide that they want to learn more about my business, and we hop on a call. And so that's all tracked for me. And you had mentioned, you know, you can do the same thing on Instagram that you do on Facebook, seeing who engages in your content. That is how I bring new members in pretty much exclusively to my business now. It used to be all the people I met, but now all the people I know what I'm doing. So I will post an image to Instagram. It's like very clear. It's got like text on it. Like you're always told not to do that. Post a photo with text on it to your feed.
Right.
But I do. It's very clear. Membership doors closing Friday, April 17th. I see, and then there's information in there. It's a carousel. It's a carousel image. So there's multiple, and they're all text of like just like basic information. And then whoever likes those, you know, I get 74 likes. Those are the 74 reach outs that I did. So I'm not being like, hey, join my program. I want to know what they got out of the content that I just posted, because I put a lot of value into my captions. And I'm going to ask them like, hey, you know, what was your aha moment? Like I'm doing a poll right now, literally, to see kind of always polling, but like during those 74 reach outs, I was literally polling to see like, okay, what resonated with who? What did you get out of it? Like, what did you want more of? Basically like Oprah style, what was your aha moment when reading this? And like, tell me a little bit about yourself so we can see if I can help you in any way. Because that's what it's all about for me.
That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. I think that that's super advice. It's something that I aspire to do. And I think it's really important to do that, especially because so much effort is put into so many of these different products and promotions and work that you create. You spend hours and hours and then you send it out into the world and people essentially vote on it with likes. And but they have an opinion. And the key is to delve into that opinion and understand the thought process behind it. If I have designers that I know who like a particular image, they like that specific image. They didn't like the 5 other images. So send a follow-up email. Here's some recent work that I've been, putting out. Let's reconnect and let's talk about your business. And that's a very effective call.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just reading a Tony Robbins quote, and it was, I've like never been to Tony Robbins or anything, but he talks a lot about like putting value out there, and like you need to be interested in other people. Because I was looking up like networking 101, like what do other people say is important, and like providing value across the board it makes you feel really good because you have like for me, my product is copy. Like copywriting, it's inspiration, it's like it's messaging, and it's educational content, it's words. For you guys, it's typically like an art form, and so when I put something out there, like we've all gotten crickets, right? But that doesn't mean people aren't necessarily looking at it. It means they're not engaging with it, and that doesn't mean it's because they don't like it. And so it's also important to get really good at copywriting, even if you're an artist, because you can have a two sentence caption that literally invites people to comment below. Like if, let me think of something. Like if you were to release, let's use painting story time. You could literally be like polling your audience, asking them what they want to see next. And that is a good way to, one, show that they're engaged enough that they're looking forward to the next. And like, that is really going to like give you a qualified audience. And then those people that you're reaching out to based on who commented and liked your photo, like they've already been engaging with you, like they've thought about it, they've done it, and they're waiting for you to respond.
Yes, I think that the Q&A, there's so much power you can pull from Instagram, for example. Do you want to see more close-ups? Do you want to see more process photos or video? You can always be polling people. Do you like this image? I'm actually finding that people love to vote on how much they like a particular painting. It's like I'm attracting people I never thought into the circle, because people just quickly look at stories, but then they're voting. So now I have like 60 people voting on a painting. It's like, wow, that's much more engagement. And it tells me, it gives me information, and it shows me who is engaging.
Yeah. Do you ever use, one thing I thought was really interesting when I posted that membership photo that was like kind of lame, that just had like text over it. I don't even know what text I used. But initially, before I had like 74 likes, I had like 50 likes. I had 50 likes, but I had 90 profile visits, which is like,
wow.
That's a big deal. Normally, people that get like thousands of likes don't get 100 profile visits. And so I had more profile visits than likes, which showed me that that image worked, because people went to my profile, and then from there I can track on my website like how many people like in a day in a certain time period actually visited my website.
Yes, that's so key. And there are so many other tricks to getting people to go to your website, like on Facebook. If you create blogs on your website, and then you maybe summarize a little snippet, something like a catchphrase, and you try to lure people in to want to learn more about it. And the only way to do it is to click on the link, which brings you to your website. And then you can give a much broader story about what you're trying to describe. And that could really increase people looking around your website and getting much more engagement too.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is great because it kind of brings us up to traffic driving. And so the different ways to drive traffic to your thing, right? It can be painting story time on IGTV, it can be your website, it can like whatever you're driving traffic to, like what are the different ways that you would drive traffic to? Let's just keep using painting story
Yeah.
time. Because you're using email, you're
Yes.
using Facebook, you're using Instagram, and you're using LinkedIn. But how exactly are you getting people to like click and open something? Because there's multiple steps.
There really is. The key is to lure people in with a hook. I mean, everything has to have a hook. So if you basically say, we've created an augmented reality pop-up gallery, do you want to learn the process for how we created this? Click on the link. Go to the blog. It takes you to the blog on the website. Do you want to see the final images of the gallery? Click on the link. That takes you, that could be a different audience, and that takes you to, again, a place on the website.
That's perfect. You just said two different, that's like two different types of copy, speaking to
Right.
two different audiences, but it's both driving traffic to the same thing. That is super, super important to understand, you guys, that you can be driving traffic to the same thing in different ways, even on the same platform, by just calling in your different audiences. And your marketing always works. It always brings you the people that you're calling to. And if you're getting people that aren't in alignment with what you're selling, it's you have a marketing and messaging problem. You're not actually calling in the right person because marketing works.
Yeah. And then, you could have another audience that you're trying to attract with like a pow, 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 before, after, this is what it looks like, something that
The one I
really
just watched, I was like, oh, this is cool.
right, kind of a psychedelic version that you then draw in new visitors to your website. Visit the link in the bio, and then that link takes you to the blog on your website.
I love it. So those are three different ways to drive traffic to the same thing. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about how we drive like media outlets and publications to our products and our events. Tell me
That's,
about your experience writing press releases.
that's so much fun. I mean, because we put so much effort into, putting together, curating a show or helping curate a show or having a show. You really want to memorialize these events, and you want to engage with as many people as possible because, how many can you have in a given year? I mean, so these are your tentpole moments. And for tentpole moments, you definitely want to craft a press release, send it out on PR Newswire. I mean, it costs, I think, about $100 to do it, and then you'll get covered across the country. They are automatically picked up by all these different news agencies. And then if your show is in a particular regional place, why don't you just research what are the most popular publications there? So I had a show out in Billings, Montana. So there are very specific publications that are popular in Billings, Montana. And those are the ones that I sent the press release with a follow-up email, very specific, more personal communication. Also, you engage with whoever you're working on the project with and find out who are they marketing it to, and providing them with the press release as well. But the key with press release is to keep it really short and sweet and just sort of who, what, where, why, and a couple of images, and you're set to go. And then you're out there and you have another important piece of content that you can drive people to your website and then launch on different platforms as well.
Yeah, press releases are good in so many ways because it really gets you to put pen to paper or whatever, your fingers on the keyboard, and you can use that content in other areas. Like you write a press release, you can turn it into a blog post. You can take a portion of that and make it an Instagram caption. I think it's key. You said I send the press release and the follow-up email. 99% of entrepreneurs go 80% of the way and call it good.
Right.
It's that extra 20%. It's the extra, like sometimes it's like for me with my touch points and reaching out to 74 people in a day, it's the follow up. Even if they want to respond, sometimes people are just busy and they get an email and they skip it and they mean to come back to it. I'm sure you all have a couple emails in your head. You can see it like bold in your inbox because you haven't opened it yet for like weeks maybe. You're like, you're still thinking about it. You're like, I'm going to get back to you. I really want to, but you just haven't yet. It's not because they don't like you. It's not because they don't want to see your work. I will say media outlets though. Actually, I worked at ABC 10. I was a broadcaster, and
Awesome.
yeah, and I learned how to write a press release a long time ago. But I also realized how thirsty news outlets are for happy news.
Yeah.
If you get a press release that has something beautiful that has to do with art or a party or just
Yeah.
something happy, especially these days, like all the new, as you guys I'm sure know, like news can just be kind of depressing. News outlets, I've been getting emails during this quarantine, it's never happened before, from like the media is emailing me asking if there's any happy things going on. And I'm just like, this is awesome because they know that I write press releases. Because when things happen in my business, I tell people about it via a press release. And there's going to be an outline in the membership group. Maybe I'll also upload it to this video module. But I have an outline for a press release. I'll upload one of my sample press releases. They got to be short, sweet. The title. There's certain things that like we learned in school. The title has to be in the present tense and like a certain number of words. But because there's these like parameters around it, it makes it easy to write because you really can't go over. It's very clear. Each paragraph has like a mission, you know, like you need to make sure you get to the point, and then you have your images, you send it out. And the whole point is to get them to come to your show. Just like the whole point of your emails to get people to go to your blog isn't to put the whole blog in the email. It's to
Right.
give them enough to want more.
That's
That's
exactly.
what an interview is. That's what like a resume is. You're just getting your foot in the door. It doesn't have to be everything all at once and like perfect.
Yeah. No, press releases are really, an amazing piece of content that people don't put enough emphasis on. They don't think about it. You know, they think, well, somebody else is going to issue the press release. No, but the artist should be issuing the press release because then it's going to say what you want it to say. It's, you know, your work better than anyone. Why is your show called whatever it's called? You know, what kind of pieces are you going to be showcasing in your particular show? These are best articulated by the artist. Yeah, I learned a little bit about press releases. I ran investor relations at Warner Music in one of my prior lives.
Yeah.
So they didn't always have the best news to tell in the music industry. That was at the time the industry was going down, down, down. Now it's in a different phase. But at that time, I had to call through the whole organization and find out the good news. You know, who were the new artists? Which artists were resonating with, you know, communities? So I had to basically interview all the senior executives and find out what were the key things that people wanted to learn about and what would give them more knowledge about the company. So it's fun. It's like going on a treasure hunt, and it's digging deep and figuring out what are the fun things that people will grab onto.
Yeah, and you do that by getting feedback, you know. And
Yes.
just because you get, let's say you get 5 likes on an Instagram post. We'll just talk about Instagram. That's five people. You know, it's not 0. And you can get feedback on why it was 5 by reaching out to people in your story. And by I guess like a follow-up for an Instagram post that gets crickets would be repost it to your story. Like do something else to just kind of troubleshoot. You're always troubleshooting your content and figuring out how to bring in new people, whether you're showing in a new market and you're figuring out who in Billings, Montana,
Right.
you know, what publications my audiences pay attention to in Billings, Montana, or like as simple as an Instagram post.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same process.
Right. Or studying the geography and finding out what's special and what's unique about Billings, Montana, and creating art that's going to really resonate with the community there. So, you know, became a lot more landscapes, a lot more earth tones. I did a whole series of trout paintings in
Yep, I'm
terms
like,
of, because of all the fishing going on out in Montana. And those were the kinds of works that actually resonated with the audiences there. So it's marketing on every level, you know, in terms of the kinds of paintings you're creating, in terms of how you're telling a story about yourself and your connection to your work. It's all of these pieces that can come together in creative ways. And the key is to reinvent yourself. And I think, Madeline, you hit the nail on the head. It's taking a piece of content and then figuring out different ways to market that same content to different audiences and to draw in a broader set of people.
Yeah, it saves you time. It allows you to just like, you get really specific on what on like what you're writing. You're like, this is me right now. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I have. It's like, okay, well, let's use that. Like, let's squeeze every drop of that out. Because it takes a lot of effort to come up with good copy. So,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
oh, Jill, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
You're a wealth of knowledge. It's incredible.
Oh my gosh, you too. I'm glad you get something out of this also.
Oh, absolutely. I love the lists that you create and keeping track of all that. I think that's really critical. I
Yeah.
think that's a really important tool.
Yeah. Try it out. And like, I guess for me, I will mention that all 74 don't immediately go in Excel. Like, I'll write those down on a piece of paper because that's like my daily reach outs. And then the like 20 that I do end up engaging with, then they go into my CRM. So
Yes,
a little
yes.
backstory on that. But yeah,
I used to do that stuff when I was a stock analyst. We'd actually have to keep track of every phone call, every email, every blast voicemail that we sent out because it was tallied at the end of every year and was part of your performance compensation. So keeping track of things is something that I remember very well.
yeah. Sounds like it could have been mildly traumatizing.
Was they kept track of how many times you went to the bathroom too.
Like,
Only
not
kidding.
surprised. Okay, I'm like, are you serious? Oh, well, on that note, this is awesome. All right, you guys, Jill Krutick, the one and only. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.